living, some of the very basic things that each of us needs in order to have some kind of decent life. That's what V'ahavta means. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that every person in my community and in our society is going to have the basics that are needed for a decent, dignified existence. And so Nachmanides says, don't worry about an abstract love. That's hard. But if you start worrying about the very real and basic needs that human beings have in your community, and you do something toward working toward the end that people should have those needs satisfied, that's the meaning of you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And then there's Moses Mendelssohn, who lived in the 18th century in Germany and has a commentary on the Bible. He says, you shall love your neighbor because he is like you. That's what the verse means. What it says is, each one of us is vulnerable. Each one of us is sensitive. Each one of us is seeking some meaning to our lives, hoping for a little bit of nachas, hoping for a little bit of happiness. And just as you want those things for yourself, and if somebody hurts you or says something that affronts you, you become easily affronted and hurt. So too, if you want to know the meaning of you shall love your neighbor as yourself, avoid those kind of affronts, insults, or hurts to any other human being. I just want to conclude with one story. The story is told about a boy who was the father, this is in Europe, the father was a Misnagid. He was a person who was very much opposed to Hasidism. He was a Lithuanian, a Litvak. And usually the Litvaks didn't like Hasidism. They didn't like the adulation of the Rebbe. They didn't like a lot of things about Hasidism. And as luck would have it, and this used to happen in Europe many times, the son decides that he's going to become a Hasid. That for a father in those days, a Lithuanian father, was really a great tragedy. And so he argues with his son. And he says, what do you need this for? What do you have to go to this Rebbe and so on? He said, I want to pursue this and explore it, see what it's like. And he asks his father if he can go away from home and spend 6 months with this Rebbe. The father reluctantly agrees because they've had arguments about this, unending arguments. And the son goes to the Rebbe, and after 6 months he comes back, and the father says, so what did you learn from this Rebbe? You know, in a kind of an attitude of looking down upon any possibility of what that Rebbe could have taught him. He said, I learned the meaning of V'ahavta. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. The father said to him, you had to go to the Rebbe, you had to go that far away and stay there 6 months. We taught you that. You learned that in Feder a long time ago. Why do you need to go to him? He said he taught me a new commentary on those words. So he said, so what's the new commentary? He said, the Rebbe taught me that the way to read this verse is, I should love my neighbor as myself. You see, it's very easy to say to somebody else, you should love your neighbor as yourself. But what the Rebbe said is each one of us has to learn to say, I love my neighbor as myself. Then we come close to the accomplishment of what the Torah had in mind. I believe that Reb Moshe and this congregation are going to strive together, work together, to become people who are going to love your neighbors as yourself. And when you do that, you will have created a great congregation. And I wish you a mazel tov.
My first job is to serve as a conduit for 3 people who could not be here. Most of you probably know that Moshe was ordained to speak by 3 rabbis. Of those 3 rabbis, I also was given to speak by 3 rabbis, and we share 2 of them. So I will begin with the greeting of the rabbi whom we do not share, but I wish we did. And would ask you, since each of these greetings come from very different places, to imagine that Zion is now directly connected to Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama lives and where Rabbi Everett Gendler is at this moment. So facts, directly from Dharamsala to here. 20th of June, Tikufat Tammuz, Erev summer solstice. Sun at its highest, sun at its hottest. Light at its brightest, days at their longest. Summer, heights, fields furrowed, furrows fertile, plants growing, fruits ripening. Summer, heights, harbinger of harvest, Katsir. Reb Moshe, high, hot, light, and bright. Bet Zion, furrowed, fertile, growing, ripening. A splendid shidduch. Bright the promise of bountiful harvests for many rich, rewarding years to come. Pain Yerbu, so may they multiply. Pain Yevarchu, so may they be blessed. Mazel tov to all. Amen. Amen. In the spring of 1977, I walked over to Art and Kathy Green's house in Philadelphia and brought my stika with me, and Art added his signature to mine. That was the first time that he put his signature on a stika document, and 22 years later, 20 years later, I received an invitation in the mail from someone I really didn't know, saying would I come to his smicha. And I got to watch Art Green give smicha for the second time to Reb Moshe. So now, thanks to email, transport yourselves or create a connection between here and the other great holy city of the world, Jerusalem. Our rabbis teach us that when a person is born and the soul comes down into this world, something of it remains above. When we pray with our whole hearts, the spirit below has the chance to find its other part, its own root that belongs in the upper world. This is especially true of the Shamot Gedolot, those great souls upon whom others depend. It is through them that others find their way. These souls are able to feel and sense their own roots above, and thus they can help others as well. In his love, openness, and warmth toward all sorts of Jews, our Reb Moshe shows himself to be such a neshama gedolah. But if every soul is rooted above, so too is every Jewish soul rooted here in Yerushalayim, the holy city. It is for this reason that I consider it a special privilege to be here in Jerusalem, yet participating in Reb Moshe's installation from here. As your Jerusalem installator, I pray that the flow of blessing from Jerusalem to the entire Jewish people will find in you an open channel, reaching all the way from Zion to Bet Zion and beyond to our entire Boston community. May this pouring out of blessings on the Jewish people bring you your reward as well, and may you find fulfillment and constant renewal of strength in your work. All this, plus long life, health, gesund, and happiness. Amen. Selah. In the basement of Neil and Carol Rose's home in Winnipeg, Manitoba in Zalman wrote out and signed a smicha for me. And in that same moment, which was 20 years after art, but 23 or 4 years after Zalman signed mine, we had a greeting from Reb Zalman at your smicha ceremony. And so now, thanks to a $20 device from Radio Shack, which I could hook onto my phone, Reb Zalman from Boulder, Colorado, taped the following message for Reb Moshe and for us all. Reb Moshe, you wore many mantles before receiving smicha. You were professor and teacher. You were lover and propagator of Yiddish. You were the Askan Tziburi. You were the cable station master. And through all these, there was one person underneath the whole business, and that was the butler. The one who makes people happy, the one who gives people joy. There is something very special about someone who gives people joy, because he gives them the future. Without joy, if people were to be depressed, they wouldn't feel that they have a future in front of them. And so the Gemara tells us about those people who were Batchanim. When Rabbi Broka asked them the question, "My uvdaifu, what is your work?" They said, "Inshe bedufei ana, bevatchina natzive." We are the people who make people happy, who make those who are sad happy. You can look it up, and in all places, Ta'anit, the tractate on fasting, 22a. Elijah the prophet tells Rabbi Broka that these people are worthy of Olam Haba. If you think of Olam Haba not as being another world, but being in this world, then you see Olam Haba means the coming world, the future. There are so many people who crept, looking through the rearview mirror of Jewish history. Oh, we used to have, we used to be. We were great, we had. And what are we looking for? There's nothing much in the future. And in you, whom I met in all kinds of places, everywhere, there was something of a spark of the Jewish future. In Krakow at one point, at the Chabura Institute, at Aleph, at any place where you were, you managed to give wings to where we were. Like that saying, why is it that angels fly? Because they take themselves lightly. And you were able to bring in that taking ourselves lightly that gives us the future, that makes us happy, that gives us Olam Haba. This is the reason why I've asked you to be the MC when the time comes for my funeral. Because I would like you to take us from there also into the future and to direct me to Olam Haba. And that's of course how we know that Erwin's extension of your contract that I heard of you just before it's going to come true. Because Zalman will live to at least 120 and Moshe will still be here all night. And that thing, that possibility is so great that one can open the heart in such a great way. We are told that when the Chachamim were about to study, it says, Ihad Rabba, Bekame Tepatach Lehu L'Rabbanan, Amar Milta Tibedifuta, Ubat Rabbanan, L'sof Yitiv Ve'emata, Ufatach Bishmata. When Rabba began to teach, he first told them a joke. And after he had told them a joke, they were able to learn. And then they got to the awe of what it was all about. Because it is the humor and the happiness joy that opens our hearts. Rabbi Zera Ishkach Rabbi Yehuda Dahava Ha'i Apitcha Debei Chamur V'chazei Dahava Bedicha Da'atu V'hibai Minei Kol Halalei Alma Hava Amarle. Rabbi Zera ben Rabbi Yehuda, who was sitting at the door of the house of his father-in-law, saw that Rabbi Yehuda was very happy at that moment. So Rabbi Zera said, if I had asked him any kind of question at that time, would have been able to answer it to me. Kol halalei alma. All the things that are hollow in the world, he was able to find a way to fill them and to give them joy and unity. So I want to wish you and your kahal that you should be al mamlachtacha for a long, long time, that they should all rejoice together with you, that in everything you will be able to find both the happiness and joy as well as the light and the olam haba. I wish you in this world and your kahal to have a taste of Olam Haba. So now I have a second job, which is to introduce someone to you that you all know much better than I do. I was so touched by Moshe's invitation to come to his smicha ceremony, and because at that time we were only just thinking of maybe moving to Boston, and I decided I would come. And I drove in from New Hampshire to be a part of that wonderful and exciting evening. I want to tell you that it's such a mark of how things have changed that I came wearing just a shirt and a pair of nice pants, thinking that I would probably be overdressed in an alternative smicha ceremony like this one, and found that I was severely underdressed. So it was a wonderful experience to see how the notion of learning again from a master, of apprenticing oneself to a master, has become another way, a good way of becoming a rabbi in my time. So I want to share a teaching from yesterday's Torah reading, because in the Torah reading of Torah, difficult as it is, there's such a wonderful mind there for thinking about leadership. And Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, an 18th century Hasidic rabbi, taught about Korach as follows. He said, "Vayikach Korach," and Korach took. He said, "Ki yesh tzaddik she'oved rak la'asot ha'anut lahaborei baruch hu." There is a tzaddik, there is a righteous person who does the service of God only to give pleasure to God. Ve'etzal zeh ha'tzaddik ein chiluk im hu oseh ta'anut im hu oseh ta'anut lahaborei baruch hu. And with this tzaddik, it makes no difference to that person whether he or she is the tzaddik who gives pleasure to God, or another tzaddik who gives the pleasure to God. Aval, if one wants to receive the reward for one's service, and that's the person who says, I'm the one who should give pleasure to God. And this is what it means when it said that Korach took. What did Korach take? Korach wanted to take the service that belonged to whoever should have it and make it his own. He wanted to say, I know that I'm the one who is here. Moshe is very smart. You all know that, and he was kind enough to send me his resume, which I will be happy with his permission to send you by email if you really want to see it all. I learned a lot. Moshe has all of the toys that we value so much in our modern Jewish culture, particularly here in Boston. Degrees, presentations, accreditation, publications, all of those things which we, in our academic consciousness, value so much. But if the truth be known, it's not intellect that makes a person a successful congregational rabbi, at least not intellect alone. It is that person's willingness and desire to bring people closer to God. Now, it's true that in our time, that requires a strong measure of intellect, since feeling closer to God and feeling close with God is a good thing. It's not come easy to us. At the same time, it is how that intellect is used, how it is modeled, that really makes the crucial difference and explains why rabbis of great intellect do not always succeed, and why rabbis who are maybe not the greatest intellects often do succeed in very intellectual congregations. But Moshe is a person of powerful intellect and powerful modeling skills. One of the most beautiful experiences that I've had with Moshe was to come to your house one afternoon to talk things over, and to just be part of very quick, hurried interactions with family members, and to see how much love exists in your house. All of us radiate love when we're outside. How many of us can invite people into their homes comfortably, knowing that what they will see is also love in the home? Moshe is one of the most collaborative people I've met, a person who reached out to me personally, and who wants only that God should be given pleasure and that people should be brought closer to God. So we've worked together now almost for 2 years on projects in which neither of us cares about getting the credit, and both of us care so deeply that people should be able to learn, people should have increased opportunities to come close to God. It's a wonderful Hasidic melody that takes 3 verses. V'taher libeinu li'avdecha be'emet. Purify our hearts that we serve you in truth. L'ma'an lo nigal arik v'lo neled la'de'elah. so that we don't touch emptiness and give birth to confusion. And then it takes a third verse, Mizeh ha'ish yirei Hashem. Who is this person who fears God? Yavo v'yorenu k'derech yikar. Let that person come and teach us in the way that God chooses. So I give to you now your ish, Yirei Hashem, who fears God, who comes to teach only what God wants taught, to help you sweeten your lives, make meaning in your lives. A true Rebbe for our time.
Thank you all for coming on a beautiful day. As Larry Kushner reminded me, Rabbi Gillis once said, Jews don't go to shul when it's nice out or when it's not that nice out. So, I'm glad you're all here. I want to thank all my colleagues, particularly Rabbi Hamilton, who had to be really apologizes, Rabbi Waldoks, Rabbi Kushner, Rabbi Shiel, Rabbi Siegel, Andrew Steingart, Andrew Wagner, West, all of you, thank you for being here. I'd like to refer you to the Midrash, which is on the gray sheet in front of you. There's an English translation that follows it. From Midrash Rabbah, referring to the coming Shabbos Parsha, Parsha Chukat. And it deals with the idea, by the way, of Midrash, as you know, is it takes a verse from the Torah, tries to explicate the verse, but it uses other verses and other parts of the Torah. Here it's relating to a verse in the Parsha which says that the children of Israel sang a song upon seeing a spring appear. Az Yashir Yisrael. And Israel sang. And Lamed Gimel says, I'll read the Hebrew to follow in English, or in Hebrew says, Echad Mishloshat Barim She'amar Moshe Lefnei Kadosh Baruch Hu, V'amar Lo Le'matami. These are one of the three things that Moshe said in front of the Kadosh, the Holy One, blessed be the Holy One. And God said to him, I have learned from you, you have taught me. Amar Lefanav Ribono Shel Olam, Minayin Yisrael Yodin Me'asu Lo B'Mitzrayim Nitgadlu B'chol Mitzrayim B'Bnei Avodah Zarahem U'Shenatata Torah Lo Natata Ota Lehem V'Af Lo Hayom Yimsham Ne'emar Yamod Ba'am Rabot. To the end, Moshe is the maiden Yosher, one who stands in and tries to defend his people no matter what. No matter how many episodes of rebellion that have come across, whether it's the rebellion of the golden calf, the rebellion of the murmurings in the desert for the desire for flesh, whether it was the story of the spies, or whether even the rebellion of Korah. At the end of the day, Moshe Rabbeinu remains the main Yosher, the defender of his people, and he says, these people really never understood or heard you, because you addressed the Torah to me. They stood far away. How can you blame them? They came from Mitzrayim. They didn't know you. Try not to blame them. They know not what they do. And by the way, you spoke only to me. For it says in the verse in Shemot, Ve'el Moshe Amar Alei El Adonai, U'kshenatata Dibrot Lo Natata Lahem. And I went up, and you didn't give the 10 sayings to them. Lo amarta ani Hashem Elokeichem. He didn't say, I am the Lord your God in the plural. Who said, as it says clearly in the text, Anochi Hashem Elokeicha. I am the Lord your God in the singular. Li amarta. You said it to me. Sheba chatati. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu chayecha yafeh. Boy, you really got me on that one. That's terrific. Amarta li matani. From now on, when I address the Jewish people, I won't do it in the singular, I'll do it in the plural. Ani Hashem. The second thing that Moshe taught God. When God said that He will take the sins of the fathers and punish the sons, Amar Moshe. Moshe said, Ribono shel olam, Amar Reshayim homidu tzadikim, you notnim me'avonot avihem, Terach u'bein tzlavim, va'avram v'dom tzadik, v'chein Chizkiya tzadik, v'achaz aviv rasha, v'chein Yoshia tzadik, v'amon aviv rasha, v'chein Naeh, shehu tzadikim notnim me'avon avihem. And he goes on to list all the people, the great people who came out of fathers who indeed were not all that holy or all that close to God. And here too, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you've taught me something. Chayecha, wow. Shani mevatel divrai, I'm going to cancel what I said. And I'm now going to say it again in Deuteronomy, Devarim Chatet, Lo yumtu avot avanim, uvanim lo yumtu alavot. Fathers will not die because of the actions of children, and children will not die because of the actions of fathers. And again he says, on your life, Yishanim kotvam lishmecha, shenemar kakatuv b'sefer Torah kosher, asher tzivah Adonai. Not only that, but I'm going to credit you with writing part of the Torah, and it's going to be called from now on, Sefer Torah Moshe, the Torah of